Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Rajiv, for introducing me. Okay, guys, let me just share my screen. Let me know, class, if you can see my screen. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So today I'll be briefing all of you about HTML and CSS. And just to give you a brief introduction about myself, I am a cloud and infrastructure at Larsen and Toubro Infotech Pune, and my core work is mainly on cloud, which includes Azure, AWS, and then GCP. So, furthermore, if you have any doubts regarding cloud or infrastructure, you can always reach me out, and I'll be happy to assist you all. And the agenda for today is like I'll be covering HTML, DNS, domain naming system, CSS, and CSS versus HTML, then imaging tags, table tags, file uploads, and HTML forms. So, like, let me just give you a brief information about what HTML is. So, HTML is the language of the browser. So, like whenever you're creating or if you're opening learnovate page, let's take an example for learnovate. So there are a lot of things which you'll be able to see. Like there will be input boxes, there will be a lot of submit buttons, there will be informations like images, graphics, and all those things. And HTML is also not a programming language. Like many people think that, and I don't know, many freshers also presume that to write it in the column of programming language section of their resumes, but that is clearly wrong. It is not a programming language. You can write it as an GUIs or front end languages. There you can mention HTML or CSS if you are knowing that. So like in C or C++, there is an editor or there is a compiler which we are using. So in HTML, we're not using any such type of compilers or terminators. In HTML, we just use a simple notepad or a notepad plus plus to run in the programs. Guys, am I clear? Or if I'm going a bit fast, you can always stop me in and then say that you are going a bit fast or a bit slow or whatever it is. You can always comment in between. Okay. So the next part which I'll be covering is DNS. So like everyone knows what a web language is, what is HTML, what is CSS, and how it functions. But the main thing here is DNS. So what is DNS? Is DNS is it acts as a phone book for the internet. For example, if you're typing www.google.com, what is the functionality which is taking in the background? And that is also an important note which we should know. So let me just show you the practical. And in DNS we have there are two type of resolutions which happen here. First is the forward DNS and the second is reverse DNS. So for example, if I'm typing google.com and I'll be getting a response from the DNS server, that will be an IP. And if I'll be typing in an IP, for example 216.58.211.142, and in response if I get the website name, so that will be a reverse DNS. So let me just share my screen and then let's just take an example of learnovate page itself. So if we are opening the page here, let's copy the let's copy the resolution, and then we will be opening our command prompt, and then and then we will type in to know the IP address. So herein, if you can see, there are a lot of responses which we are getting from the server. So the first will be IP address 4, and then it will be followed by our subnet mask, and then the default gateway, whatever is it is. Let's just focus on how do we get the IP address. So if you'll type the command ns lookup and followed by whatever page you want to know the IP address of, you can just hit enter and then you'll get an IP address herein. So this is the IP address This is the public IP address which we will be getting here. And then if I type in ns lookup, and then if I type in the IP address, to see, after typing the ns lookup command and the IP address, in response I'll be getting the entire URL for Learnovate. So this is how in this is the functionality which happens in background for any web page, be it Learnovate or Google or anything. For example, if I just type in pinging your page, Learnovate page, so this is the response which I'll be getting here. So if I'm getting this kind of response, then we can just make a conclusion that our our page is up and running. Or if you're not getting any TTL response, so class, anybody is having any idea what is TTL? Yes, no?
No.
Okay. So TTL is actually time to live packets which we get from internet. So if you're not getting any response, like if there is no TTL response from there, so we can just consider or make a note that our page is not up and live and we have to make some changes to bring it up again. Okay, and then let's just move. And also if we see here, there are a lot of, like if we see the IP address range here, so this, like, it will always vary and there are always classes for your IP address. Let me just also open the page and then. So herein we have, like in public IP addressing, we have five type of classes wherein we get the IP address range depending on which, what is the free IP which the DHCP server is having always. So there are five type of classes in IP addressing. So it will be class A, B, C, D, and E always. And herein, if you see, the range of class A will be 0 to 127. And in that 0 to 127 range, there are somewhere around 2000 or 3000 IPs which will always fall in for a web page. And how do we get the response from the web page? So if we see the first range here in class A, which will include IPs from 0 to 127 with a subnet range of 127 127.0.0.0. In an IP addressing, we always have four octets here. So the first octet will always define the class which we are having. For example, if we see the second class, class B, it will start from 128 till 191 and followed by the subnet range which we can calculate. So yes, so this is the functionality which happens in background whenever we are opening any kind of web pages, whether it is Google, Learnovate, or Flipkart, anything. So this everyone should know, like what is the background functionality and how it happens. So let's just come to our topic of HTML. And herein, this will be our first program for HTML, which I'll be executing. But let me just first explain the concept to you. So your HTML program or HTML code will always begin with a doc type followed by an escalation, like starting with this escalation mark. Okay, where it went? Okay, escalation mark and then doc type HTML, which also defines the document is an HTML type. And even if you miss it, there'll be no error. I just tried it. This is not mandatory. If you miss it, there's no errors. Okay, and the second line of your program should always be in HTML followed by an angular brackets. And head will be the element that contains the meta information about the HTML page, followed by a title. And the title thing, which whatever you're putting in the title, you'll get in on the pages browser or in the browser header part. And always whenever you're using any element or any tag in HTML, you have to always make sure that you're enclosing it with a with a backslash always. And if you're not doing that, you will get an error or your code will not run. And the main section of your program is the body part, wherein you'll be writing the heading paragraph or you'll be adding some images, links, and everything. And like if you want to write a paragraph in your HTML code, you always have to use the P tag, and always you have to follow the backslash to end your paragraph, and then you have to end your body, and then you have to end the HTML. And let's just write our first program. And always, guys, there's a suggestion from my side: whenever you're executing any kind of HTML pages, always use simple notepad. Do not use notepad plus plus or anything, because that might give you a, like, it will not increase your chances of being a good web developer. If you're using a notepad, it, like, you'll not get the codes, everything, but that is good anyways. So as I said, we have to start with doc type HTML, followed by HTML in angular brackets, and then we'll always make sure that we are closing it. So I'll write HTML backslash, and then let's just write a body. And then we'll always make sure that we are closing the body if we are writing the code in normal notepad, not in notepad plus plus. Because in notepad plus plus, guys, you'll always get the code within the tab. Like if you're writing body and then just you just press tab, so you'll get the other code automatically. So if you're just a beginner in web development, it is always preferred to use normal notepad, which in my case I always prefer to do that. So h1 will be my header, like what is the size of my header I'm giving is a heading, and I'll always make sure that I'm closing my header with a backslash, and I'll just put dot dot. Let's just make sure that we are not doing any mistakes. And then I'll close it. And that's it. And always, like for any HTML program, we all know that we have to save it with a .html extension. And I have to go on my desktop and find my first program. So if you see, this will be the way in which my program will be executed in HTML. And further on, I'll be just briefing you about how HTML, CSS, and all those things work. And the next topic is CSS. So mainly CSS is the language we use to style in the HTML document. For example, if you just like the way I just wrote a program, it was just a simple program without any colors, without any attractions to it. So if I want to give some editing, if I want to give some graphics, if I just want to give some buttons, colors, borders, everything, I'll just be using CSS. And CSS is the way in which you can add colors and everything, or styling to your pages. And the difference between HTML CSS is, like, if you're just entering a building which is empty and there's no structure, there's no decor, there's nothing. So that will be HTML. Just to give you an example of, and if you're decorating it with all the colors, decorations, so that will be CSS. And let's just come to the syntax for CSS. So if you want to use if you want to use CSS cascading style sheets, there is a format to be followed. And the first part, and always a CSS is divided into two sections. The first section is always a selector, and the second section is always a declaration. So selector will be h1, as in you can see in the picture here, and declaration will always be followed by a property and a value. So here in the property is color, if you can see, and the value given to the property is blue, and followed by, if you want to give some more additions to your page, like font size, like alignment, and all those things, we can always separate it with a semicolon, if you can see here in the syntax. And then if you want to separate a property and a value, we always have to give a semicolon like a colon in between. And if you want to separate two declarations, we have to use a semicolon, like if you can see here, my mouse hover. And this is an example for my for CSS. So if you know all this, okay, I don't know what has happened to my mouse. It is moving automatically. Okay, so if we see here, this is my first CSS program wherein I have put in my style. If wherein my link page is my style.css, and my this will be a style sheet. So I'll just open my mystyle.css and show you what are the formattings which I have done, followed by a heading and a paragraph. So let me just open mystyle.css. So if you see here, like how I told you, there will be a, like if you see here what I've shown you here, there will be a selector and there will be a declaration. So same thing, if you can see here, there is a selector and there is a, this will be our selector, and this is the value to my property. So if I run the first program for it, let's just see what is the, so if you can just see in my style or CSS what was the values which I have given. So it was blue and the margin was 20 px with a light blue background color. And let's just also open this. And also the main advantage of using CSS is like you can just always, like whatever pages I'm having in this folder now, if this is the page, I can always, if any page I'll be opening this, if I'm giving a link to my style.css, I can just apply all this features in other pages also. Yeah, so that was CSS. And we have table tags. So what is table tags? If like table, what is a table? Table is mainly a division of rows and columns wherein, so in HTML also we have table tag. So table tag always, whenever we want to include a table in our program, we have to use it, we have to use the keyword table tag. If you can see on the slide, there is tabl table followed by angular brackets, like, and we also have to close the table with a backslash always. And if we want to put some data, like data in the table, so we always have to use tr for the table row, th for the table head, and we have to always make sure that we are closing our we are always closing the brackets. So let's just write the code for that. I'll close all this. So this will be my, this is just a basic program to start with HTML tables. And what I told you is like you can always style. TH is table header here, TD is table data, and then I have to open a curly braces, and I'll always make sure that I'm closing my curly braces. Where in my table border I want fun px is pixels, and it should be solid black. And also it should always end with the semiquotes. And I have to close my style, I have to close my head, and I have to start my body here. And also let's just write a heading to be clear. And I'll just Style my table again. Like I can always put in like where do I want my alignment of the table? Will it be right? Will it be left? Or how it will be? So this is what I'm doing now. Float, and I'll make it left. You can always choose right, left, center, whatever you want. And then table row. And you can put in your name, which is just the common one. Name, roll number, maybe. And I'll make a third column also of class, and I'll close my header also now. And then you have to close your table here. And then like this is just my headers which I have given, and I'll pass value to my table heads now. Let's just open my row wherein I want to put the value, and then I'll put dd again to put the data, and name, let's just give my name rimjim. And then I'll close my dd table data, and then let's put roll number as 11. And then I'll put class as 12, and then I'll close my dd, and then I have to make sure that I'm closing my tr as well, table row which I've opened, and then an end to the body, and an end to html also. And then let's just save this program as my first table program, table.html, and then run it. So see, the alignment which I have given there was the right alignment. So that's why my program is appearing to my left. And if you put in the float type as right, so you'll get it on right or center or whatever you want to prefer, you can put in. So I hope this is clear to everyone. And then the next part is HTML forms, which we always use to collect the user input. For example, if you see Flipkart page, so there's always an interaction between the web page and the user. So to get the interaction from both the parties, we have to use HTML forms wherein the user will be typing the responses. And then to make a form complete, there are some elements which we have to use. We cannot just type it like use paint or something like that, and then but there'll be no interaction. So to make that, we have to use the forms, and the elements of the form include the text field, checkboxes, radio buttons, spinners, and then there will be drop downs also. And if we all and if we want to use the form in your html program, we have to use, I don't know what happened. And if you want to use if you want to use forms in your program, so always you have to use the keyword form followed by the angular brackets with your form content, and then you have to make sure that you're ending your form always. So the first element which I'll be covering for the form will be an input element. So what is an input type is, and it is always the most used type, because if you're using checkboxes, radio buttons, text boxes, submit buttons, so this is always mostly used. So herein, if you see, the value which I have passed for my input type is first is text. So text mainly displays a single line text input field, and then the next will be radio button. So radio button is like my choice, if whether it will be yes or no. And checkboxes is mainly used to have multiple options. And then we have submit button as an input type, wherein we submit our responses. And then we have a button, and the button is always clickable. Yeah. So this is the example for a text field. How will I use a text field? So herein, if you see, the value which I've passed in for my input type is, I'm just going ahead. So the value which I've used for my input type is text. And uh, what is the what is the usage? Let's just see here. I'll be okay. Let's just do the program at the end. I'll just cover the theory part first. So like if I want to use a text field in my program, what will be my usage? Like as I told you, like first I have to use form and then label for. So label is mainly the context which is not, which is just appearing. It is label is just used for for displaying purpose. So my first is like the first thing which I'll be using here is f name. And what is first name? And then input type for the first name will be text, and then id and all these things. Yeah, that is same. Anyways, the text field is covered. The next thing which we will be using is radio button. See the main see, everything will just remain same on your web page. You just have to use different type of input, different type of things to make your page more interactive, whether it is text boxes, or if it is radio buttons, or if it is check boxes. So if you see if you saw the first program, I used input type as text, and here I'm using input type as and here I'm using input type as radio buttons. And what will be my, and what is the option which I have given for my radio buttons? It will be like what is my favorite language, whether it is css or whatever it is, followed by your program. And then like as in I told you, like it will all, like the value for the input type will always vary from your desire. Like if you want to put a checkbox, or if you want to put a radio button. So if you want to click more than one option, we have to use check in as your input type checkbox. So if I have a vehicle 1, vehicle 2, vehicle 3, or if you have a bike, or you have a car, so if you want to make different type of selections, and if it is one of the selections, then you'll be using checkboxes. And the submit always, like if you want to submit your or more responses, then we use the submit button. And herein, so if you see the input type value, it is submit, and the entire program just remains the same. So, and we also have one more tag which is file upload. If you want to use, like if you see your, if you're filling any type of forms for any type of examinations, you always see there are buttons to upload your files, like photos, signatures. So this is what they use in background. If you see the input, if you see the input type, it will be file, and then id will be file, and then name will be file name. So every time when you're using, like you have to make sure that what type of file if you're uploading. And always, and if we study html in more detail, we can always put the restrictions to your file. So let's just run this. Run run the file upload first, and then we'll see the other things. Class, anytime in between, if you want to stop me and then ask me any doubts, you can always do that. So let's just open my code with, okay, I've always shown you my code. So if I run this program, I can always choose a file type, what kind of file I want to upload here. So if I go on desktop and then html, I had an image here. So I can anyways upload a file, or a text file, word file, whatever kind of file I can upload with this kind of command. And the command was here, input type is file, and then file. And always, let's just see an example for, after seeing the image, I just remember how do we add images to your html program. Doc type html, and this program I'm writing is to add an image to your html page. So I'll just make it simple without any headers and all those things. html, and then body, just add a header also, h2, and then I'll write the image attribute, image attribute for HTML. And then we will make sure that we are closing it. And to add an image to your HTML, the tag which we use is image. SRC is your source, and we have to make sure that whatever image name which we are putting in here, it is in double quotes, and the image should be always present in where the file you're folding. So I'll be using this image. So the name of this image is Diite. So I'll put here Diite, and then I'll make sure that what is the extension for my Diite. It was JPG, I feel. Okay, so it is a JPG file. So I have to write here diite.jpg. And I'll also like to give a width to my image. So width will be 400, or let's just put in 500. And the value, whenever we are passing any value or anything, we have to always make sure that we are passing it in quotes. And it is obviously double quotes. And height will be 600, or let's just put 300 and see what happens. 300, and then I have already closed it, and then I'll close my body part, and then I'll close my HTML. And this program is to show how to add an image to your HTML page. So let's just save it on my desktop, and I'll save it as image program, image code.html. And let's just go on the desktop and see what happens. Okay, the reason why it is not appearing here is, I'll tell you, because the folder in which this image is and the folder in which this program is, that is different. So if I put in the Dia image also on my desktop, it should work, I guess. So I've added the Dia image on my desktop where my code is relying. And let's just open, and if you can see, the code is running properly. So this is the way how we add images to your web page. And then what should we cover next? Okay, so let's just see how to add a link to your web page. Okay, so HTML. HTML is, it's doing HTML is anytime fun. Like doc type HTML. Body h2. Here may I'll type maybe link example, or example to add links. Let's just add a paragraph tab also. Whatever you can. I'm sorry guys, I'm typing any random text here. You can type anything. And then the main content here is, like, you have to give, you have to put a is equal to, no, sorry, a href is equal to, and the link of the page which you want to pin. For example, I have opened Learnovate, so I'll put this link only. And like I told you earlier also, like if you want to put any value to the property, you have to put it into double quotes. And then let's just come out of the angular brackets and write, this is a link. This is a link. And then end my a tag. And a tag, guys, tag, like a tag defines the hyperlink. Here a tab, like if you see the A, it's not AEIOU1. A here defines the hyperlink. For example, if I use A means that I'm using any link to be opened, and href attribute specifies the URL of the page where the link goes to. Okay, and let's just close this one, HTML, and then close body. So guys, I'll suggest is do not use Notepad++ because you'll not get the hang of the code and hang of the language. Save as desktop. And then it was a link example, right? So let's just open it as link.html and then save it, and just let's just open it. So if you can see like what I've given, this is a link and this was the header, this was the paragraph, I guess. And if I just click on the link, I'll be able to open the Learnovate page. So this is how href tag and a tag is used. And okay, I had to show you the example of input boxes. I'll just show you that as well. So if I want to use checkbox, let's just open that with Notepad. And then if you see what I've told you, the input type value will always be checkbox, radio button, text box, whatever it is. So you can use it, and these are just the values. Label is used for displaying purpose. So let's just see what is the output for this checkbox. See, I have a bike, I have a car. When you want to select multiple options from the given options, you can use checkboxes. These are just kind of displayings which we used in HTML. And also I guess in VB.NET we have this input boxes, submit buttons, all these things. So yes guys, I'm done for today. Anyone, any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and in future, if you have any doubts regarding HTML or CSS or cloud or infrastructure, Azure, AWS, you can always reach out to me and you'll get your assignments from your mentors. So take care, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you so
Thank you, ma'am.
much.
Welcome.